What is happening, baby? Welcome back to this week's episode of the Fantasy Football Huddle, presented by the Huddle Chat Sports Network, Danklyfe brand, Let's Talk Sports, and our new sponsor, Shank It Golf brand. Thank you all so much for your time and tuning into today's episode. Today, we're going to go through the top 24 running backs. We already did 1 through 12 last week. I'll drop the link in the description if you missed that. We're also going to kind of discuss the top 12 running backs just a little bit. We're just going to run through it just to refresh y'all memory here after the intro. But we're going to not waste much time today, y'all. So make sure y'all subscribe to the channel. Help us hit 100 subscribers here on the new channel. And if you haven't yet, hit that thumbs up so I know that you like the content. But without further ado, man, let me send y'all this invite. If y'all do, now is the time to smoke them if you got them. Fill up your cup, roll something up, and let's get right into the news. As I said, we're going to discuss the top 12. So first things first, number 1, Christian McCaffrey, 2, Saquon Barkley, 3, Jonathan Taylor. And we made this list before all of the Jonathan Taylor, Jim Irsay drama started. However, Jonathan Taylor's not going to go much further down this list unless A, something happens with the trade situation, or B, something happens more with his injury situation. But we're going to adjust these rankings as we get closer to the actual start of the regular season and we get closer to the first week. But like I said, JT 3, Bijan Robinson 4, Austin Eckler 5, Derrick Henry 6, Tony Pollard 7, Breece Hall at 8, Nick Chubb at 9, Josh Jacobs at 10, Ramondre Stevenson at 11, and Joe Mixon at 12. We're going to adjust the rankings, as I said. But right now, we're going to continue with our early running back rankings, going on to number 13. And this one was really a tough choice for me to make here at 13. A lot of running, like if you ask your friends in general basis, we did this experiment the other day. Shout out to my brother for this. We did this experiment the other day. If you ask your friends, like I'm not trying to get any inside information from y'all or anything, but like, what are your top 3 running backs in fantasy football right now? Everybody's going to give you kind of completely different answers, and it shows you that this year, running backs are going to be kind of weird to judge because everybody feels completely different about each running back's different problems and different ceilings and floors, and everybody feels completely different. Some people have Saquon at 2 like myself. Some people have him at 9. Some people have Derrick Henry in the top 3. Everybody's a little bit different this year, but right now I got Aaron Jones at 13. He was running back 10 in fantasy football last year. He had career highs in rushing yards, targets, receptions, receiving yards, everything last season, even with A.J. Dillon there. With A.J. Dillon, you do have to ask what are Aaron Jones's goal line numbers going to be like. But you're looking at the Packers right now with a revamped offense, not going to have Aaron Rodgers behind center. They still have a good offensive line. I think that he will still be consistently good like Aaron Jones always has been, and he's going to have a few spike weeks. You know, every 3 weeks or so, he'll take off for a big production week. But I think that he's going to be consistent, and that's going to be enough for me to put him at 13. Next, at 14, we're going to have Travis Etienne from the Jacksonville Jaguars. He last year finally had that breakout year that we've been waiting for. He led the NFL last season in 40-plus yard runs. It did take him a few weeks to take over the backfield. It really took for the Jaguars to get rid of James Robinson, in kind of a surprising move to myself, but it ended up being the move that they needed to make, and they made it all make sense in the coming weeks with how Travis Etienne played. He didn't score a ton of touchdowns, and it wasn't for lack of trying. I believe he was top 5 in red zone attempts last year. You could want to see him get used a little more in the passing game. And if he does get used more in the passing game, he really does have the ceiling to be a top 8 running back. I mean, he could even hit a top 5, hopefully even better. I think Tank Bigsby that they drafted this season really could grow into a pretty surprising role for this Jacksonville Jaguars offense. But Travis Etienne will be the premier back on an improving offense that's going to have a lot of scoring opportunity and a lot of excitement with Trevor Lawrence and the other weapons that they have. They added Calvin Ridley. So this is an improving offense, and I think that Travis Etienne is only going to see positive things from that. Coming in at 15, I got Najee Harris from the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Najee Harris, man, if you drafted Najee Harris last year, he might be on one of those I'll never draft this motherfucker again type lists for you, because Najee Harris, he really was disappointing, especially at the beginning of the year last year. The reason I'm putting him at top 15 is he's a volume whore. There's really not anything and anyone there to take carries from him. However, Najee Harris, we're coming after his first couple of years in his career, and we're starting to wonder when he's going to show us that Najee Harris is that great running back that we thought he was going to be. He hasn't particularly shown to be great at football. He's a good football player. I'm not disrespecting Najee Harris, but he hasn't shown us that great running back ability that we thought he might have had in his first couple of years. It's been 2 years, and we still haven't seen that explosion. He's been sub 4 yards per carry. He had a lower involvement in the pass game than he did in the first year. But then when you look at it, what he did in the second half of the year, he had over 21 opportunities per game in the second half of the year, started getting used a lot more. I wouldn't be surprised to see Jaylen Warren take a little bit of a bigger role here in this backfield, but ultimately Najee Harris is going to be a volume whore, and the ceiling can be there. You just haven't really seen it yet, and we have a decent enough sample size. Coming in behind him at number 16 is going to be Alexander Mattison. Now, this was kind of an audible. I threw Alexander Mattison in here. This is going to be an adjustment. He may slide up spot or two down. He may slide a spot up. But with Dalvin Cook officially out of Minnesota after I started making this list, I had to throw Alexander Mattison in here. If you'll notice, I stayed away from, Zeke, Alvin Kamara, a few of the players that had questions coming into the year that we didn't quite know what was going to go on. We now know what's going on with Alvin Kamara, so my rankings will be adjusted to match that. But moving on with Alexander Mattison, he's now running back one with hardly any competition in Minnesota for the running back position. He's a thumper running back and gets a ton of work in the goal line, especially with how big and explosive that Minnesota Vikings offense is. It's an ascending offense. It's getting better by the day. And he's operated as running back one many times with Dalvin Cook's many injuries, the dislocated shoulders and the other injuries that he's taken. You're looking at Alexander Mattison having operated in that starting running back role more than once. Especially in November and in December, the running game is going to be big in Minnesota and in those north side teams. So you're going to really want to get him with nice confidence in those later rounds. He can be this year's Jamal Williams. I honestly think so. If you look at the stats that Minnesota puts up compared to what Detroit puts up, Minnesota is right behind Detroit in almost every important stat with goal line carries, goal line attempts, that got Jamal Williams where he was last season. I think Alexander Mattison has a big opportunity to potentially be this year's touchdown whore, the one that really surprises a lot of people, and I have a lot of confidence in Alexander Mattison this season. Before we move on to our next few picks, I want to give a big shout out to our sponsor, Danklyfe brand. Danklyfe brand is going to be your home for customized apparel, and you're going to hit them up and be extremely happy with what you get. Hit up Danklyfe on Facebook, and you can hit them up for t-shirts, hats, tumblers. They're doing all kinds of different designs, and you can get your own custom designs as well. Thank you to Danklyfe for all the work that you do over here on the Huddle Chat Sports Show, as well as getting all the gear ready that we're going to have for our giveaways. Speaking of our giveaways, make sure you drop down and make sure you're subscribed to the channel and drop the like if you like the content. Once we hit 100 subscribers here on the new channel before the season starts, we're going to be giving away a ton of Huddle Chat sports gear, customized sports gear, and a lot of things brought to you by Danklyfe brand. Thank you all so much over at Danklyfe. Now, moving back into the top 24 running backs of fantasy football for 2023, we're going to be talking about number 17, Kenneth Walker from Seattle. He really has taken over this backfield. Since Rashad Penny got hurt last year, you saw Kenneth Walker. He was one of those waiver wire pickups that really could have helped some people win a league last year, and I saw it happen. So once Rashad Penny got hurt, you really saw him take over this backfield. He never really got truly involved in the pass game, but a big chunk of his points came from breakaway runs. He has that athleticism. Once you get him in the open field, he can really make a defense pay. And with how that Seattle offensive scheme works, it really gets him open and into space as much as he really can handle it, which is really awesome. They did draft Zach Charbonnet this offseason. He's going to be a big part of the offense and could really be the thunder to Kenneth Walker's lightning. But I think especially early on, Kenneth Walker has a very clear role in this backfield. And I see that he's going to be, I think that he's going to really take over and be a confident running back that I would love to have at RB2. Moving on into running back 18, we got Miles Sanders, former Philadelphia Eagle, now with the Carolina Panthers. We weren't wrong, as I've heard other people say, we weren't wrong about Miles Sanders. We were just early. We knew that he was good. We knew that he was going to have that breakout year. We've just been early on it. He had that breakout year finally last year with Philadelphia in that crazy ass committee that Philadelphia Eagles was running last year. And I know if you were like me and you had Miles Sanders on your team, it was sometimes so stressful to see full series where Miles Sanders was being pulled out of the game. Not just plays, but full series, like he would get them down to the goal line and then they would put Boston Scott in there. The Philadelphia Eagles were driving me absolutely insane with Miles Sanders last year. But he was hardly used in the pass game as well, which was one real problem that I saw with Miles Sanders last season. When you look at what the money that they gave him in Carolina, then the confidence that they have that Miles Sanders has to operate in the 3-down role. And you look at what they've done with Christian McCaffrey, with Deontay Foreman, with the running backs that they've had. They don't typically run by committee in Carolina that we've seen in recent memory. They take a running back and they run him when he's tired. He taps his helmet, goes and gets a break. So you look at Miles Sanders potentially really seriously thinking about having a 3-down back role this season, which you love to see. You look at how Panthers running backs have flourished. Like I said, Deontay Foreman, Christian McCaffrey. In recent memory, Panthers running backs surprisingly have been one of the most reliable things that you can pick on in fantasy football. He may not have the same touchdown opportunities that he had in Philadelphia, but he's going to have a bigger role in Philadelphia, in Carolina than he did in Philadelphia. And I think Miles Sanders, you can comfortably have him at RB2 flex option and love to have the opportunity that Miles Sanders is going to have. Number 19, we're going to have J.K. Dobbins from the Baltimore Ravens. Now you're looking at him 2 years removed from that ACL tear. And we really thought he was going to be a lot better, or not a lot better, but a lot more sought after coming into this year. Last year when we were talking about him, we thought this year was going to be the year J.K. Dobbins would be a top 10 running back, would really be a lot more sought after. And I haven't gotten quite as high on him, and I haven't seen many people get quite as high as him on him as we should be to have him in a higher, more valuable draft pick. But once he was healthy last year, he looked extremely good. Weeks 14 through the playoffs, he had over 100 yards in every game from scrimmage. Gus Edwards and Justice Hill are his only competition, and they're decent running backs, decent enough that you wasted a waiver wire pick on them a couple times last year. But they will be good backup running backs, but there's not much competition for that starting role at the running back position in a revamped offense here in the Baltimore Ravens. And I'm very optimistic, cautiously optimistic about J.K. Dobbins this year. So I put him at 19. Number 20 is going to be somebody who is going to be adjusted in this rankings, and I can't quite tell which direction yet. It's going to be David Montgomery. David Montgomery is coming into Detroit this year after Chicago. A slightly disappointing run in Chicago, but enough to put you in the top 24 running backs in this year. David Montgomery, let's face the facts, is a more talented, bigger version of Jamal Williams, and he's going to take that Jamal Williams role. They also have Jahmyr Gibbs now, but he's a smaller running back, and he's not the size that you get in David Montgomery, not the size you're going to get that goal line work, not the size that's going to get those valuable carries, those first and second down carries, those money carries that you want to see a running back get. David Montgomery, especially early in the year, is going to be taking those in large part. I can see 250 carries for David Montgomery on a healthy season this year easily. And David Montgomery could easily go as high as 15 touchdowns this season with a ton of touchdown opportunity in an ascending offense, a talented offense that just continues to get better, a decent offensive line. So I think David Montgomery really, I can see him sliding up, but we still are yet to see what this Jahmyr Gibbs role is going to be. And that's why he's down so low, because you're cautious about Jahmyr Gibbs, but I do not see Jahmyr Gibbs taking the money carries away from David Montgomery. Moving into 21, we're going to be talking about Dameon Pierce from the Houston Texans. He's another person that I'm cautiously optimistic about this year. The Texans gave him 20 plus carries last year, and he flourished at the beginning of the year. And he got 20 or more carries in 69% of his games last year. And you saw the usage wear on him in real time. You saw him get slower and just more worn out as the season went on, and you saw him take that injury late in the year. The offense and the offensive line is going to be much better, and the offense as a whole is going to be much better as well this year. And they're not going to have to rely on him much more, and thank God for Dameon Pierce's legs. He's not going to have to carry the team on his back quite as much as he did, but we saw what Dameon Pierce was able to do last year with the Houston Texans, and he's only in a better offense. They also added in Devin Singletary, who could take some of that pass work away, but ultimately I think will only help keep him fresher by not having to take so many opportunities per game. I'm very cautiously optimistic about Dameon Pierce this year. I would not hate to have, I wouldn't want him necessarily as my RB2, but I would like him in my flex RB2 conversation. Dameon Pierce, I'm cautiously optimistic about this year at 21. Number 22, we're talking about Cam Akers, another player who quite hasn't lived up to his hype. He finished really strong in his final 4 games, and you can argue that he was finally healthy towards the end of the year. He averaged 22 touches per game and over 100 yards when he was finally healed from the Achilles tendon in those final 4 games, including the playoffs. He had 0 competition for touches, which is really the main part that I love about Cam Akers is there's no competition, and that's going to be what you notice about a lot of these lower players down here is the lack of competition and the ability to just whore out the volume to this young man. Everything really depends on the Rams, though. If Cooper Kupp is healthy, if Matthew Stafford is healthy, if the Rams are kind of back, at least in the conversation of being a playoff contender, because last year was a complete turnaround from being a Super Bowl team. It was a complete turnaround to barely even being in the conversation as a contending football team last year. So it all depends on the Rams as how good Cam Akers is going to be this year. But I think that if Cooper Kupp and Matt Stafford struggle, the Rams struggle, he's going to struggle. Cam Akers is going to struggle. But if the Rams are good and they're as good as we think they're going to be when we talk about Cooper Kupp, then I think that Cam Akers is really going to benefit, and I put him here at 22. 23 and 24 are extremely hard picks, and we're going to run through them a little quick, but we have a lot of other people to mention as well. 23, I got Brian Robinson from the Washington Commanders. He gets insane volume. He had 8 games last season with 20 or more carries. You're going to see his share of the 18-plus carry games. You still have Antonio Gibson there, who's going to be more involved in the passing work. And he's going to get and Brian Robinson's going to get quite a bit of work on the goal line. He's going to get those money carries. He's going to get those early down carries, those red zone carries. You're going to see him get those 10 zone carries, and it's all going to depend on how good Washington's offense is going to be this year. Gibson is the running back involved in the passing situations, like I said, but and Brian Robinson is yet to take that whole grasp on the role as the guy. But you saw the situation that he dealt with last year, and coming back after a full off season of full healthiness and really not having to focus on anything but football, and getting better. I think Brian Robinson is another player that I'm very optimistic about this season and wouldn't mind taking a chance on him, and that's why I put him down here at 23. 24 is going to be right now Isaiah Pacheco from the Kansas City Chiefs. He had a decent breakout, especially for a 7th round pick last season. You're looking at him. He wasn't very involved in the passing game. That's Jerick McKinnon's role. You look at the Kansas City Chiefs, they did decline CEH's 5th-year option. He's still on the team, but I don't think he's going to really even be activated in many games. I think Edwards-Helaire is really just going to be there just in case, and I don't see him taking much volume or opportunity away from Jerick McKinnon or Isaiah Pacheco. Isaiah Pacheco is going to be the early down back on the league's highest scoring offense. That's the argument to be made for Isaiah Pacheco. There's a lot of things to be worried about, though. Kansas City throws the ball at an absolutely insane rate, especially around the goal line. You look at last season, they had 73 passes inside the 10-yard line. 35 times they passed inside the 5-yard line, and 61% pass rate on the goal line. 27% of the few goal line carries that they had last year were to non-running back players. They had 6 different non-running backs take goal line carries last year. That Kansas City offense is extremely creative, and they throw the ball at an extreme rate on the goal line, so it's hard to trust those money carries that I've mentioned many times with different players. It's hard to guarantee those goal line carries. So he's really going to get a lot of his work, hopefully in the passing game a little more this season, but in the open field, and you're going to see him out of the screen game. You're going to see him in those early in those early downs, and really hope for that. So like right now, like I said, I put him at 24, but you're looking at like DeAndre Swift in Philadelphia. He can make the list. I got Jahmyr Gibbs that could be moving up in the conversation, like I was talking about when we spoke at David Montgomery. Then you also got Dalvin Cook, Zeke, Alvin Kamara, not mentioned on here. James Conner's another person we can put on the list. So 24, 23, they're hard right now. They're toss-ups. We're going to adjust these rankings as we get more information coming out of training camp, as we get more information from the preseason. And we're going to have a finalized ranking. But right now, that's going to do it for the top 24 running backs. We went through the top 12. Link will be in the description for the top 12 we did last week. And then we just went through the 13 through 24. We got the wide receivers coming here probably tomorrow, hopefully, if not the next day. We're going to go through 1 through 12 and then 13 through 24. We're going to go through the quarterbacks and tight ends as well. We're going to start talking draft strategies. Money time is in right now. We got 4 weeks until the NFL season starts. So drafts should be coming here anytime. They're coming around the corner. So I got information coming to you hot and ready and coming off the presses. I'm hoping to get out 2 episodes a day if I can, but the editing takes a little bit longer than you guys would actually realize. So I'm going to try to at least get 1 episode out a day for you guys. And we're coming out with a ton of information. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Make sure that notifications bell is on. And if you made it this far, please drop a like and let me know you like the content. That's going to do it for me today. And make sure to always keep your chin up and your attitude down. I'll see y'all next time. I'm out of here, baby. Peace out.
Bye.